I'm so happy to be here.
Oh.
Yeah.
We have today Denise Druce with us. Denise is a mother of 3 handsome, stellar young men and the wife of Michael Druce. All of them together they all are entrepreneurs. They all have the entrepreneur spirit where they have just created the life they love. If you were to say, what is the most successful entrepreneur? It's someone who is creating the life they love, and all together they are doing that in their individual lives and also as a family. It's so fun to watch these guys. They own Yoga Assets, and that's a business that she uses to certify yoga instructors. And they also own the nonprofit organization Yoga Forward, where she's able to take yoga where it isn't. She is currently certifying over 40 men and women in the Utah State Correctional Facility, including one who is serving a lifetime sentence. She is actually one of the certifiers, right? One of the teachers that is helping you to certify the other inmates. Yoga is more than flexibility, and it's more than just stretching and doing the strength work. I personally have just taken on doing more yoga in my life. Not just, well, for sure the stretching, it's good to be flexible, and it's good to feel, you just feel so good after doing it. But what I have loved is there's metaphors and analogies in doing the yoga that I especially love. I love especially doing it with Denise. She has a lot of beautiful insights and encouragement and inspiration. And so it goes along with the mindfulness. It goes along with what I especially love is learning to stand in the soft edge of a hard place. That's her motto in many of the themes of her yoga instruction. And which is the title or the topic of our whole discussion today. Denise has needed to stand in some hard places recently, well, throughout her life as well, but most recently, she's going to tell us all about that. But one more thing that I wanted to bring up is that she was recently chosen to receive the World Inspiration Award from Idea Fit. Idea Fit, in case you don't know, they are the world's largest fitness association. But a huge accomplishment, an award that she's given. It's a huge honor for her. And she's going to just share a little bit about her life story and a little bit about these awards and accomplishments and things that she's learned that I know will be helpful to us too. So welcome, Denise. Oh, and one thing I also want to mention, Denise is my sister. I didn't mention that at first because that is not necessarily why you are all here to hear her, because she's my sister, but that's the most important role that she has, according to me, that she's my sister. So welcome.
I agree. And I guess people can tell by looking at us. They probably thought before you said that.
Yeah, that's probably true. Yeah. Okay. Well, take it away. Tell us anything you want to tell us, and I may come up with some questions along the way. But just tell us what part of your life you want to tell us about.
Okay. Let's start at the beginning. I was born the oldest child. I was the first child to 2 people. And our dad, and I'm going to say this because it shaped who I am. My dad was an alcoholic. My mother was a very religious person. So right from the get-go, I was born into a world of, in many cases, opposites, and seeing 2 people from 2 different worlds try to figure it out. And before too long, I ended up being the oldest of 3 children. So when I was 6, cute Sherry was born. We picked her up at the hospital close to Christmas time. She came home in a Christmas stocking. I get to take credit for naming Sherry because our mom was going to name her Cinnamon. But that really, without a whole lot of details about childhood, that set me on the course to be who I am, because as an adult, I'm very much a leader and a bossy person and an in-charge person. And so that started very early. Mom and dad got divorced when I was 13, and our mom remarried pretty quickly after that. And so then we had a Brady Bunch family. We had 3 and 3. He had 3, she had 3. So now I was the oldest of 6 kids. And then they had 2 more. So I got to continue being the bossy oldest kid. And that brought with it all kinds of challenges, the second family and all of that. But I guess our biggest challenge that happened right about that time was when our dad went to prison, and he was incarcerated when I was 13 years old. So that was a rough and rocky time of life. That was a hard place. Wow. And I'm not sure I stood in it very softly at that time.
Yes, I remember that for myself too.
Yeah. So, fast forward, I ended up going into, in high school, I wanted to be a cheerleader, couldn't make it because I wasn't flexible enough. Ironically, I'm a yoga teacher now. But I went into student government. So again, like honing these leadership skills along the way. And the summer after high school, I was working at a health club, and it was a small women's health club, and they filed bankruptcy. So all the instructors quit, and it was just me and my manager. And she said, "Can you teach aerobics?" And I said, yes, because I just say yes to things. Taught my first aerobics class. This was in 1981. So green shag carpeting, leg warmers, thong leotards, all the things. Thongs weren't around yet, by the way, so just leotards. Put on a cassette tape, bounced around on the carpet with these 3 women. And what was pivotal about that for me is that those women came in, they did not want to be there. They were all in bad moods. They were kind of like, their posture was kind of slumpy. And at the end of that hour, they all stood taller. They all had smiles on their face. We were all hugging each other and laughing. And that moment, that's the moment I knew I wanted to work in this industry. I wanted to be in fitness. I wanted to help people thrive and live better. I wanted to leave people better than when I found them. And so right after that, I went to college, and I put myself literally through college teaching aerobics. So I graduated from Utah State University with a degree in health education. And while I was there, I charged people $1 a class. And I would fill up a gym with 80 people. And I started doing that every night. And I made really great money just standing at the door collecting dollars.
Wow. I remember that actually.
Yeah, so that was fun, big boombox, and I got to kind of see how the industry was starting to grow and evolve. When I was at Utah State University, there's a very large equipment manufacturer there called Icon Health and Fitness. And they hired me to do a video on those little mini jogger trampolines. You remember those?
Yes, I remember your video too.
It was called Rebound Aerobics, and we would bounce on these things and woo in our little leotards. And I literally got to travel the world promoting that product and that video. I went to Japan and London and Canada. We traveled all over promoting that video and their products. So that gave me another really big insight into the fitness industry. I started a business called Fitness Factor. We did wellness programs for corporations. And then I was just kind of really exhausted from all of the driving around to all the different businesses. So I opened a gym. So in 1989, I opened a gym called Anatomy Academy, and it was really the place to be in downtown Salt Lake City. You know the stories, right? Madonna and Dennis Rodman came, made out in our weight room.
Yes.
Yeah. Carl Malone taught cycle classes for us. Vanessa Williams came, Brooke Shields. It was right downtown. So we got to meet a lot of famous people, and super fun time. We also opened women's health clubs at the time. And all along the way, I met my husband in the gym, Michael. The women's club was actually his idea because they were kind of coming on strong at that time. Curves was this new trend in women-only clubs, and he's a forward thinker. So, so we met, we got married. He became my business partner, fixed all the financial problems that I had gotten us into because I was more of a fitness person. And we started having babies. And we had the 3 boys that you talked about, which are my whole heart. Now they're big. But at the time, when our 3rd baby was born, we were operating these women's health clubs. And Michael said, there is no way we're going to put anyone through college on health club revenue. Mm-hmm. So we sold our gyms, and it broke my heart. That was just my whole social circle. It was my identity. It was so hard to let go of those businesses, but we did. And that's another pivotal moment, because at that point I had been teaching yoga for a while. My body was starting to age a little. I was by then in my early 40s. And I became a freelancer, and I just started teaching for different gyms and creating different opportunities for myself to teach yoga and fitness.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, that's the key, guys, creating it for herself. That's the whole idea of creating this life you love, is that you get to create it. You decide what it is, and then you figure it out how to
yes, because, you know, the one thing that's really important to our family is freedom. You know, and really independent freedom. Like, we want to decide what days we work, what days we take off. If we want to go to Hawaii for a week, we don't want to have to answer, you know, to bosses. The downside of that is, you know, it's kind of nice to get that regular paycheck, and those benefits are nice. And we've never had those, you know, so it's a trade-off. It's definitely a trade-off, but it's one we've chosen to make. So, what's another highlight I can hit you with? So I guess COVID then no, there was another highlight. There's another boulder. In 2015, I was doing all the things, freelancing and doing all that. I was by this time training yoga teachers. I had started Yoga Assets. I was diagnosed with breast cancer. And at that time, that's really the first time I learned to stand at the soft edge of the hard place, because I was afraid. I didn't want to leave 3 little boys without their mom. But I was more afraid of that disease making me hard. And I didn't want to be hard. I wanted to continue to walk through my life gracefully and with a sense of ease. And I just saw so many scenarios where, you know, when you see someone with cancer, it's hard to not feel so just like heavy and sad and like, I hate cancer and the bracelets F cancer and I'm a warrior and I'm a battle against. I don't see myself like battling against.
Yeah.
And so that's where the beginning of my journey to stand at the soft edge of the hard place really came, is when I was diagnosed with breast cancer.
Do you mind if I ask you some questions right there?
Sure. Yeah, go ahead.
I remember that time, and I remember feeling like I was so full of just optimism and hope that you were going to kick it. And I think it came from your optimism. I'm sure that's where it came from. Because even in announcing it, you probably didn't even take a breath before you said, but I'm going to kick this, you know, like don't even give anyone enough time to grieve a future loss. You know, you guys just need to know that I have this challenge and we're going to make it through. We're going to kick it. So I didn't have any, anyway, I just don't remember having a lot of fears. I did a little at the very beginning. I wanted to just take care of you, you know, when you had surgeries and stuff. And I remember feeling all that, but overall, I think anyway, the reason why I guess I have a question or a comment, I don't know, but I just was thinking of how your attitude made such a huge difference for you, I imagine, and for all of us. But you saying, you know, I was afraid, I don't know that I ever heard you saying that. I don't think you ever said that to anyone. And I'm afraid. And anyway, I think that there's a important piece there for something, is that you have to have those moments when you're going to be afraid, and moments when more, I guess, strongly than feeling those fears. I have more of a fear of letting it take me down. So
no, thanks for acknowledging that, because I think it's really important to feel what you feel, right? And of course, like, I'd be a crazy lady if I didn't receive a diagnosis and then do all the what ifs. But I learned pretty quickly in that scenario, and I keep learning, that I can spin out. I can spiral down so easily if I allow myself the luxury of those fearful thoughts. And I don't like the way that feels. And I do believe our mind is the number one medicine when we're going through any kind of illness, that our mindset trumps everything else.
Yes.
It really does. So the belief that I will get through this, and the belief that I have the resilience to be in this, right? And the belief that I can withstand whatever comes, but right now I'm good. In fact, when people would say, you're going to be okay, I would very quickly say, I don't know. Yeah. I don't know about that, but I am okay right now. Okay. And I would just keep being okay, moment to moment to moment. So I did have a double mastectomy and reconstruction, and I got to go on a really fun medication for 5 years, which is a hormone blocker for my specific kind of cancer. And then 5 years later, I got to ring the bell and they said, you're cancer free. So that happened in 2015. That was really a pivotal piece of the story, I guess, my life story. If I was writing a book, it'd be the chapter, 2015. And then in 2016, as you know, our dad passed away. Got that year right?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Yeah. Yep. So in 2016, we lost our dad, and through everything that he had been through in his life, when he got out of prison, he was sober. And I feel just so lucky that I got to know a different version of my dad the last 20 years of his life, right? And so did you. And he was my boy's favorite person.
Yes.
He just, he lived close to us, and he would come to our house every day at 3 p.m. You could set your clock by that guy. He'd pull up at 2:59 to make sure he was knocking on the door by 3. And
so cute. He did homework with your boys and took him on walks.
Yeah. So one at a time, like when they were, it was Jackson until he got too bored with Grandpa, and then he moved on. Then it was Bodie, and then it was Van. But yeah, they would do homework together. They'd go for walks, and those boys know the name of every kind of tree.
And every
bird, the sound of a bird, the rocks. Like, the other grandparents would take him to Chuck E. Cheese, and he's like, nope, we're going on a nature walk. Or thrifting and or dumpster diving.
That was another thing, yes. One of his favorites.
So the other thing the reason I bring that up as a milestone is, at this time I was teaching yoga, and I was doing yoga teacher training, and I have a mentor who says, if you want to know where to serve in the world, go to your wounds. And so when our dad passed, my wounds were really either in addiction or prison. And I had done a lot of work teaching in circles of addiction, and I didn't really feel a calling there. It didn't speak to me as much. It felt like I was doing something nice for people. But when I thought about going back into prison to serve, I got the biggest stomach ache, and I thought I was going to be nauseous. And my mentor said, then you found it.
Wow.
That's it. And so we pursued that, and I went back into the prison and started teaching, and it started with women, just teaching yoga. That evolved into a yoga teacher training program, a 200-hour program. And as you mentioned, one of the women in that program is serving a life sentence, and she's a phenomenal human being. She and I went on together to get her 500 hours trained. And she did another 200, and now she is one of our trainers. So that was the beginning. And like you said, right now we've just started a program of 25 guys, teacher training. So yeah, I think we're up to about, once those guys graduate, that'll be about 50 people that have gone through this 200-hour program. And a lot of those folks are out now. A lot of them are teaching classes in places like addiction and recovery and transitional housing for people that are getting out of prison. And it's just a beautiful thing to see that.
For sure. There's so much more to yoga, like I said, than just the stretching. And that's what is so beautiful about it. In fact, recently started doing that with my sister as well, going to some of the trainings with her. And the whole time I was tearing up the whole time, trying not to let people see me tearing up. But it was just so beautiful. The things that she was talking about, the hope that she gives to people, the hope that yoga, the practice, and the things that are in her heart that she lives, that she can share with others. It was so beautiful. The people that were some of the promises of you can be forgiven, you can overcome these things, you have personal worth. All of these things is what you would think if you were to think of anyone in the world that needs this stuff the most. It might be prisoners, it might be people who have really had a rough life and made some choices that they regret, that have possibly the lowest self-image of anyone of the human race. It would be people who are serving time. So anyway, I love that experience with you. Sometime I want to share some of the letters that some of these inmates have shared with Denise about the difference that this has made on them and how it's changed their lives and what they're going to do with this practice that they've learned. One of the practices that we did, she does this all the time, but one that I was with, at the end of the class, she says, what is one word that comes to your mind to describe how you feel right now? These big burly guys, and they're saying things like peace and love and hope. And those are the kind of things you would not hear. And I think you even brought it up. You said, this is probably not terms that you would hear in your cells, or amongst your buddies. But it's beautiful that you can feel and say these things in this setting. And what you're offering these people it's not just amazing. It's not just incredible. It's very emotional for me. It touches my heart to the deepest of my soul. And it could be like what you're saying, that's maybe where my wounds are too. And that's what's touching me. And how, if I can make a difference with them as well along your side, then that might be something that's powerful.
It made my heart so happy to have you there with me for those classes. And you can edit this out if you want, but I'm just going to expose to your audience that you guys, Sherry is a 200-hour certified yoga teacher, and she's hiding her light under a bushel.
That's true. Yeah, it's true.
And the fact that while we were there, you were so touched, is part of why I say that, because I think you really have a gift of seeing people as who they are and where they are. And who better than you and I to go into that space and look around that circle of men and see fathers and brothers and uncles. And, there are a lot of people, we try to do a lot of fundraising, and there are plenty of people who feel those people screwed up. They deserve to be where they are, lock them away, throw away the key. I don't even want to think about them or see them. And you and I can't stand in that line, because we know the impact on a human being and on their family. And so when we sit in those circles, of course, we're going to be emotional as we, see the humanity right there before us. It's just so close. Yeah. And you're right, to be able to offer them in 1 hour's time to go from chaos to serenity.
Yeah.
Is almost like magic's fairy dust.
There was one thing that was mentioned in the class. One of the men said that all of these things that you're sharing are great about our own personal worth, but I'm thinking about when I go back out into the world and how people see me and how they think of me. And my knowledge and your knowledge and our experience is that when you have that in your heart to see yourself in a better light, the higher self in you,
the divine within you.
yes, that when you are in tune and in touch with that, it doesn't matter what anyone else thinks. It won't matter to you. It won't hurt you like it does right now. So I mean, that was the most touching to me, because here he was saying, and I think many of the men are saying, I can overcome these things and I can apologize for these things. But what if they don't forgive me? I guess in essence of what he was saying, there might be people that won't forgive you, but it won't matter, because it's between you and God, and it really ultimately is how you feel in your heart about yourself. So I just love that.
It's so beautiful. And it is hard. And they know, a lot of them have been in and out. I mean, we've got one woman that graduated, and that when she was in our program, that was her 8th time in prison. And that was 6 years ago, and she hasn't gone back. She's got a great job now teaching in several addiction facilities, recovery treatment centers. This is what it took for her to stop going back in there. But the reality is, most people look at them like you're describing. Most people look at that felony on the record. The first thing they ask is, what did you do? Labeled and judged. It's hard to get a job. It's hard to get a place to live. It's hard to get a vehicle, to get on your feet. And, again, a lot of people will say that they deserve that. But I feel like when someone comes out of prison, they've paid their dues. And if they've been working on themselves, which this program provides 200 hours of deep self-inquiry, I say we give them a chance. And, and there are people like us out here, right, Sherry, that are willing to give people a chance to create a new life for themselves. So we just have to be honest with them, right? Like, you know what, of course you're going to run into that, but here's my opinion. That's not your problem. That's theirs. If they're over there being judgy, they're going to have to answer for that.
Yeah. I think that's what you said to him, actually. What they think of you is not your problem.
Yeah. Yeah. So, at the end of the day, or the beginning of the day, I don't know which, the word yoga means to unite. And if we go back thousands of years and we look at these meditating yogis sitting in caves in their robes, these spiritual humans, they were trying to figure out like the meaning of life and what is God, who is God, where is God? And so they would just they gave us all these tools to quiet our minds so we can find that out for ourselves. We can have that communion with the divine.
Yeah.
Give whatever name you want. And so yoga means uniting, and it can mean uniting breath and body and movement, right? That's how we do it here in the West. It's stretching. It also means uniting human beings, because when we look at each other, we realize we all came from the same dust. We all go back to the same dust. Our source is the same. That which created us is the same. And so you can kind of think of like this big vat of chocolate, and we all came from chocolate, right? And if the owner of the chocolate store pours chocolate into molds, and this one is shaped like a dog and this one is shaped like an elephant, humans are going to argue about which one of those tastes better.
Yes, that's true.
Right? But it's the same chocolate, and we are the same. We look different on the outside. We make different choices. We act differently. But at the end of the day, we are the same. And yoga, namaste, the light in me sees the bright divinity in me sees that in you. And I don't care what you did, because what you did can't change that light. Just can't. And so I think if you're incarcerated, you're going to hear that message, and it's going to give you some hope to look up and to start to ask, like, who is that? Who is that source? And I want to be part of that. And I want to see that in me. And I'm going to start right here, and I'm going to make amends. I'm going to say, I'm sorry. I'm going to not screw up again. That's more important than drugs. That's more important than my ego, And I know that there are a lot of religious programs in prisons, and they probably do the same thing in different ways for people. this is just my way. This is my way of serving, that I have found my inner peace and my direction.
Yes, that's so good. Another thing I want to add, we didn't mention, is the security officers and how they see the inmates. You're teaching them as well. That's another thing I wanted to bring up. That'd be awesome to have the security officers as well doing these classes and seeing these people the same way, with that seeing the divinity in even the inmates. It's also important to bring up too is that those who are influenced, their family and their friends obviously are going to have, especially if they were personally offended, it's going to be difficult for them to let go of that pain. But having them feel like they can start new and they can get over some of these then they never will overcome them if they stay in a place of I am worthless, or having the identity that they are a criminal, but that's just who I am. They'll never be able to better their lives living in that anyway. So
yeah, and that brings up a really good point. Like I get criticized isn't the word, but kind of called out often by people who are victims of people who are serving time. And my response to that is, by the grace of God, I have not been victimized like that. I was victimized by having a parent in there. I do not know what you suffered. I don't know what you're suffering. So I can't stand in any place to tell you about your journey of forgiveness. That's you. I'm guessing maybe this person was in your life to help you learn a lesson, if you choose to learn it, but I don't know. And so, that's why we can serve in there better, because we're not victims going back into that space. And I can't imagine the superhuman power it would take to do that. So I want to just give some grace to folks that have been, really victimized by people. And that's a journey in and of itself.
I don't ever tell anyone to forgive. I don't ever say those words, because I think I was told that myself. And I think it actually puts you more in the rut of trauma than being able to help you and heal you through it. But it's more than telling you to forgive. It would be more like maybe take care of yourself, self-care, and love yourself and build your own self-love and forgiveness.
And someday you will have to forgive if you want to soften your heart.
That's what I think, right? When you're ready, that's what I think. I mean, they have to work through some of that stuff. And maybe you never will be ready. Maybe it'll be a challenge. Yeah. But so the work in the prison is ongoing. And I love that I'm able to be a part of this with you. So what came next? Was it around 2020 when you started working at the prisons?
Yeah. We started there in 2017. And of course, along came this fun thing called the pandemic. And so in 2020, we had just started a program with the men, and that got shut down. And it didn't resume until now. So we had this big hiatus at the prison. We were able to kind of limp along with the women's program. Whenever everyone would come off quarantine, we'd go back in for a little bit, and then it'd get locked down again. So during the pandemic, with everyone's lives, everything got crazy and upside down. But as you mentioned, we raised entrepreneurial humans, and our boys did some fun things during the pandemic. Oh my gosh. Yeah. So I guess if we really kind of distill it down, they're all entrepreneurs. My oldest makes jewelry and apparel. My middle is really into music, and my youngest is a technology guy. And from the time he was 5, we put up his own YouTube channel when he was 5 years old, and he started getting ad revenue from that. So he's always like seen the juice from technology. So on his 16th birthday, we were sitting at home, and this happened just before the pandemic. I want to just make sure I've got my timeline right. So my youngest son was in the 10th grade when the pandemic shut everything down. And we tried to do the homeschooling, the online virtual, and he couldn't do it. I mean, I was so worried about him and his mental health and his physical health. And so he finished the 10th grade with packets. And as soon as he finished the 10th grade, he was just turning 16. The pandemic was well underway. We looked out the window and this big truck full of vehicles pulls up in front of our house and unloads a Range Rover, this beautiful, like slate black Range Rover. The kid had bought himself a Range Rover and paid cash and had it shipped from New Jersey. My husband and I didn't even know.
Wow.
Like his older brother signed whatever he needed to transfer money and bought himself a Range Rover. So then he was Mr. Independent, basically dropped out of school. I've been trying to help him. I've been trying to encourage him to do high school and he has zero interest. So long story short, the boys went to Los Angeles during the pandemic. They leased a home in the Hollywood Hills. I guess now I can tell this. They used to not like me telling this, but $17,000 a month rent for a house in the Hollywood Hills. And they lived with two other musicians and they just had the time of their lives living in the hills. And they did their thing, their jewelry, their music, and their technology. He set up apps, he did drop shipping, he did websites. So that was just so fun to watch them thrive as three young men during the pandemic. That was kind of the highlight for me. They're back home now. They live together here in Salt Lake City and they have a house together down the street. So that's been fun.
Yeah. Have them close to you. Oh my gosh. It's been fun for me to watch. Okay. What's next? He's creating an app right now.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Is he announcing that, or can you tell us what his app is, or is that too premature?
I will tell you what it is without telling you the name because
yeah, well, it might be, yeah.
It's just a friend finder. It's kind of like a dating app, but for high school kids, to meet kids from other high schools. So it's a friend finder, and they've got really great like facial recognition technology that they can guess your age within 2 years. And dang it was right with mine. It's so good. It's really good. So anyway, but that's his current project.
Oh, that's awesome. That's very cool. And so how close is he to having that done?
It has soft launched, which means he's kind of hand inviting people to try it out and to get the bugs worked out. I think he's hoping to launch it in September when school starts so that it's kind of a really big back to school thing.
Oh my gosh, I love it. That's such a good idea. Connection. Yeah. We need connection. That's the thing that he's creating school. They just want to play on their electronics. So that's fun. Find some friends. Go do some fun things together. Make some fun together, right?
Yeah, so I have questionable parenting techniques in that we are independent people. And when your 16-year-old buys himself a car and says, I'm moving to LA, I decided I could either stand in his way and stomp my feet and lock him in a room or support him in living his dreams. And that's what we did. And it's turned out great.
Beauty with that in learning life lessons, but right?
Yeah.
Learning a lot of life lessons, I'm sure. We've
never had to pay one bill for them. They're, and so I think that's the thing is like, okay, you're on your own, but you're on your own. And it's just it makes me so happy to just see them happy and free and creative.
So fun. I love it. Very inspiring. I know I've been wanting him to come on and give us some tips on how to do what he's doing because he does very good.
Top secret.
I know it's not what he answered to me is that he's just really kind of shy about it being online and being on a video and stuff. But he has shared with me how to do it. I just need to start doing it and then ask him questions along the way.
Ask him when he makes his first billion, then he'll talk a lot, I bet.
Oh, that's what he said he wants to wait for until the app is all done and then he'll do an interview. But I'm saying just do it now. Yeah. We're all in the process, right? You'll never arrive. I don't think he'll ever arrive. That's just awesome. I'm very proud of your boys.
Yeah. So that takes us through the pandemic. During the pandemic, I went virtual like everyone else did. I pivoted my fitness and yoga business to this space that you see right here. I recorded over gosh, probably over 1,000 videos in this space. And about half of those are on YouTube for free. So if anyone's interested in yoga classes, cycling, or total body conditioning or meditation, my channel is just my name, Denise Druce, and they're all free, except now YouTube has it so you got to have ads. So.
Oh, right. But she also has Patreon. So if you want to do some of the other ones, some of the exclusive ones are fun for her Patreons.
Yeah, I've got about 200 videos on Patreon now, and Patreon does a 7-day free trial. So I'd love you to come over and just like sift around through the yoga videos, and there are some cycling and fitness videos there as well. And I also do a little podcast there. So just little 10, 15-minute mini inspirational episodes. And then if you'd like what you find there, it's $10 a month. So yeah.
Good. DenisDruce.
Right. So, then the pandemic's over and we're cruising along, everybody's happy and just doing the thing. And so I guess my latest milestone, you want to talk about that now?
Yes, I don't want to talk. I do want you to talk about it, but it's this hard. Yeah.
Yeah. So I'm at another hard place and trying to find the soft edge again. Life kind of does that, right? I use the analogy in my acceptance speech that I'll use here that I think life is kind of like a really good personal trainer. And when you have a really good personal trainer, they progressively overload you. And they're smart. They let you do the same thing for a while so your body gets used to it. And then one day they show up and they say, you've been kind of cruising along there with those 15-pound dumbbells and you've gotten a lot stronger. So here, take these 20s. And you'll try to lift the 20s and you can't lift the 20s. And a trainer will spot you and they'll encourage you and you'll do a couple reps and then you'll do 3. And next thing you know, you've mastered 20s. So my personal trainer called Life showed up again on June 21st of this year, our dad's birthday.
On your way to the prison.
On my way to the prison. And I can talk about this so easily now, Sherry, but seeing your face, this is personal.
I know.
Personal.
I can hide his face. Would that be easier?
Just knowing you're here. Driving out to the prison, I had seen my oncologist for an annual visit, and I complained about a little pain in my shoulder, and she sent me for a CAT scan. So as I was driving, they were calling to tell me that my cancer has returned. And the nurse on the phone said, I'm really sorry to tell you this over the phone, but it is in your lungs and it's in your spine. And that's all we know. And so we need to do some more testing. And that's all I can tell you. So that was June 21st. And then there was this big, long period of silence because that's how the medical world works. But after that, first of all, I continued and went to the prison, thought about going home. And then I thought, the best thing I can do right now in this moment, I don't have enough information. I'm just going to stay where I am, be in this moment, live my life, do what I committed to do, which is go teach to the women. And I did. And then in the closing circle, we had a little extra time. So I shared with them what I had just learned. And I can't think of a better group of people to gather around me in that moment because they're so grateful. And I know they felt like it was an opportunity for them to turn around and serve me, be there for me. And I'm really grateful that we had that moment and that experience because that was very special for them to be allowed into something that personal.
Very much so, yeah.
Yeah. So came home, told my husband, we went and told our kids. Those were both really hard conversations. So then all the medical things started, and I've had a PET scan that showed us exactly what the cancer looks like. They did a spine biopsy that has informed us that it is in fact metastatic breast cancer. So now we know what type it is. And I've just barely on Friday started my treatment. So I'm on a chemo-like medication. It's shots every 2 weeks, and then it's oral tablets every day. And I'll do this for 3 months, and then we'll go scan again. And our hope is that that tumor in my spine, because that's the concerning one, has shrunk. And if it has, we'll know we're on the right path. And if it hasn't, we'll have to get more aggressive.
Mm.
This is called incurable because there's not a cure. It is treatable. And again, we'll just have to keep getting more and more aggressive. You know, the hard edge, besides waiting for 2 months to actually get the treatment, that's been hard, is the average survival rate for this is 3 to 5 years. And when we were in my doctor's office, my husband's he's an internet cancer specialist now. And she said, I'm not going to tell you have months to live, but I'm going to tell you have years. And I said, how many? And my husband jumped in and said, I'm reading 3 to 5. And she said, yeah, it could be less, but it could also be more. I know you, Denise. I wouldn't be surprised to see you in 10 years. And I said, that's the one I'm going with. 10
Yeah.
years. We are going with that. And my husband's over there just shaking his head. I'm like, you.
Yes, I know.
So
Yeah.
I came home and I created a 10-year vision that I'm so excited about, that involves doing all the things that I'm doing right now, bigger, involves
Yes.
my family, and it involves living in Hawaii 6 months out of every year. I feel fantastic, Sherry. That's the thing that's so weird about getting a diagnosis. If I didn't know, I wouldn't know.
Yeah.
And so I'm just going to keep thriving. I'm just going to keep living right here and doing what yoga teaches, which is don't get ahead of yourself. Stay present, stay in this conversation, sit in this chair, breathe this breath. And I don't know if I'm going to be okay, but I know I'm okay right now. And that's the soft edge.
Yeah. Wow. Oh my gosh. I know. Well, so I'm hanging on to some of the things you said for hope, for sure, is that you can actually shrink it. That's what I would hope for too. Like you can actually shrink it, and that it can also make it dormant, right? Some of the treatments can make it dormant. So even though it is, like they call it, incurable, it's not going to leave, but it might shrink and it might hold, right?
Yep. And I'll hold out for a miracle as well.
Yeah.
You know, I've lived some miracles before. So my vision, and I could be proven wrong, but I do believe in the power of mindset. And that is my best medicine. My physical body is healthy, other than these weird things that have showed up. And I don't feel like I'm fighting them. I feel like, just like before, they're presenting me with a lesson. And if I fight the lesson just comes back heavier and harder. If I surrender to the lesson, what is it that we are learning here? What do you have to teach me? And it's a lot about patience and humility and managing my stress.
Yeah.
You know, being transparent about what's happening and not trying to put on any big, facade. I'm already learning a lot of lessons, and I'm just going to keep doing that. I just want to keep learning the lessons as long as they're here to present themselves to me. And I'm not going to let myself tomorrow my life away.
Yes. So in my impatience, I'm saying at the very beginning, I said, okay, what are the lessons you want me to learn?
Mm-hmm.
Just tell me all the lessons now and I'll learn it quicker.
Mm-hmm.
That's
Write it down. Write it all down for me.
Don't learn patience that way, right?
No, we don't.
That is the hardest experience that I can think of, someone going through, and what you're doing with it is, I think, the softest edge, like having the mindset and the humility and the patience and all the stuff that is going to come with learning those lessons. But
I don't know, Sherry, if it's the hardest thing a person can go through. I honestly think my husband is having a harder time than me. So seeing someone that you love dearly going through this and feeling completely helpless because he's in no control of how I think, how I feel, what I eat, what treatment I choose. That has to be, I think, even harder than where I stand. And probably for my kids and my loved ones, it's another lesson in this, just compassion for people who have loved ones going through this. They get kind of brushed aside. And it's really, really hard to love someone that's going through something hard, you know? I will say to every single person watching this, we all have our own version of this story. You know, in our past, like all the things behind us, we've all gone through unbearable, unimaginable things that people watched us go through and said what you said, like, that's got to be the hardest thing. And we've come through them. And we were talking earlier, so I'll just throw this in. Like, I believe that all of that was necessary. And I'm actually grateful for all of it because it got me here. And then I can say, now watch what I do with it. So with that perspective, this thing that I'm going through now, I dang hope I get on the other side of it so I can look at it in my rear view mirror. I really hope that. I don't know. I'm going to hold all hope for possibility, but I see it as just another opportunity to learn and grow.
And it might not have to be a rear view mirror. Like you're saying, you might not have to look back. You might be able to just learn it in the moment. Like,
yeah, to stand in it.
I cut you off. Sorry.
No, stand in it. You're right. You're absolutely right. And it sounds like from all the docs I've been talking to, this is something I will live with. Like people live with diabetes and MS and all the other things.
And that comes with it. Just had an interview. Tell us the name of that interview that you just had. I didn't write it down, but that's one that we could refer people to listen to, also the podcast.
Oh, so I just did two. The Overcomers podcast is really good. And then All Things Fitness and Wellness.
Okay. I don't know. I didn't see that one. I didn't see the All Things Fitness and Wellness.
Yeah, it's good. Yeah. She's a fitness professional from Vancouver, BC. And we had a really fun conversation.
Awesome. So you said some things with, I heard the one, the Overcomer, and you were talking about feeling the two different experiences you can feel. And when you were at the highest highlight of your life, being almost, you're ready to receive this World Inspiration Award. And at the same time, getting this news that you have a cancer that is incurable. In the same moment, and I remember you expressing, is you can actually be in both places at once. And my question is, do you have to choose? That's what I wonder. Can I choose? I don't know how to do that. I actually do know. I do know how to do that. I can liken it to when I adopted Caitlin, when I adopted our baby, and I was holding her in my arms and just enjoying being the mom the first few days of her life, at the same time that I was mourning for the loss, our friend's loss, that she just gave up this mourning for her, having to mourn for her and feeling joy at the same time for my baby. So I wonder if that's similar to where you can feel these two opposite emotions and at the same time.
I think you just kind of described it so beautifully, because it's like, if you're able to, I don't know if you want to call it a spirit or a soul or your higher self, right? But if that is that part of you that transcends this physical experience, right? You've heard that saying, you're not a human being currently having a spiritual experience. You're a spiritual being having a physical experience. And if we can just in a nanosecond remember that, then we become this witness and we watch ourselves standing on a stage receiving an award and go, that's so amazing, like a proud parent. And then we watch that phone call come in, and then like a parent like would weep for you, like that's so hard, you know, and we would just take that child in our arms and just say, honey, life is hard and it's beautiful. It's both, it's all, right? And that's how I view it, is like I'm watching myself stand in both of those places. And I don't have to choose which one at any given time because my witness self sees all of it. My big self knows that it's all just part of this big salad called Denise's life, and just toss it up and there you go.
Salad, yes. Lots of variety in that salad.
Yeah, because none of us will be here forever. This life is a terminal condition. And if anything, turning 60 and getting news like this, it's a gift because it was a massive wake-up call for me to overnight just completely change the relationship I was having with my husband, completely reprioritize everything going on in my life. And so in that respect, like, we're all going to face that at some point in our lives. And why not now give yourself that wake-up call and just freaking live life.
Yes, it's true. And you're reminding us to do that too. You remind me.
Yeah.
Dream, just go for it. Don't wait until tomorrow. Don't wait for 5 more years. Just do it right now. Start right now.
That's right. No time like now, Sherry Kay.
That's right. Standing at the soft edge of a hard place. That's a good model for you for sure of your whole life. So is there anything else of your story that you wanted to, that we haven't touched yet, or that you wanted to bring up? I have a handful of questions. I wanted to do some rapid fire questions for you.
Well, I think that's chronological. That gets us to today. So rapid fire at me. We'll see how this goes.
Okay, very good. So you've talked about this the whole time. So maybe it's not even worth bringing up. But maybe there's another time that you can think of to describe a time when it felt like all odds were against you, but you did it anyway. And what was it? And what were the circumstances? What did you do? What were the results when all odds were against you?
I don't know that I've ever been brave enough in my life to go against all the odds. Everything that I've done so far has fallen fairly naturally on the path. I've never had to like go way over and like make something happen out of the blue. It just seems like everything I've mentioned came up pretty organically. And then the courage was to just say yes to that thing and then do the work to make it happen. I would say, to answer the question, this moment in my life, this diagnosis is the most I've ever felt that I'm against all odds in terms of the statistics of this. And so we're just going to leave that at to be continued.
Yes, to be continued. And it's going to be continued for many, many, many years. So, okay, so if you wrote a book, what would the subject be about? I think I know the answer. This is almost like the whole interview, so we might.
I do want to write a book called The Soft Edge of the Hard Place. And I think the book would be all about exactly what we're talking about, tricks and tools, and especially specific meditations, breath practices, journaling and mindset pieces that help me come back when I start to feel that pull to the future.
Ooh, I love it. That's so good. And that would help anyone. You talk about cancer, but you also mentioned that we all have this a little version of this for ourselves. Mm-hmm. That something else is just like cancer. So we can apply these tools to anything in our lives that we're dealing with that feels like.
Yeah. That's right.
If you could be a spokesperson for any charity or social cause, what would it be?
Yoga Forward.
Yes.
I happen to have, your listeners are going to think we created these self-servingly.
Oh, I should have known that you were going to say that one. I didn't.
Yoga Forward is the nonprofit.
Yoga Forward for sure. Okay, second. What is the second charity? What is something that is not Yoga Forward that you'd pick? We'll go that way.
I don't know I can't think of a specific one, but if I were to align myself with another nonprofit, it would be something that supports people who are coming out of the criminal justice system and being a bridge to help them get on their feet.
Yeah. Do you know, I remember, I just interject this piece. When I interviewed one of your former students, she and formerly incarcerated, she said that, I think this was off the air that she told me this, but she said, one thing that I would highly recommend if anyone wanted to do any kind of organization, nonprofit organization, any kind of service support for those who have been incarcerated, she would advise dental work, that's a one piece for people's self-image and self-esteem.
That's great.
Smile. Yeah. I just thought about that. That's a good one.
That's nice.
Okay. So, here's a good one. For the Hollywood version of your biography, who would you cast as you? For your
Jennifer
story?
Aniston.
Jennifer. Oh, I love Jennifer Aniston. Yes. And who would be cast as Michael?
Brad Pitt.
No, of course.
Come on, who else is there? Let's get those two back together.
Yes. I know, seriously, for your story. I love it. Let's do it. Okay, here's the one here. Who is your hero? I don't even know if I know the answer to this. Well, you have mentors and you've said some people, but I wonder who is of all times, even anyone who, family or whoever who may have even passed, someone who you look up to. What are their qualities and characteristics that you admire?
I would, on any other day, I would say Bono. I admire so much his art, his stand in the world, his activism, his lyrics, his voice. He kissed me on the cheek once, like all the things. I would say that. But in this new season of my life and standing at the soft edge, I would honestly say our dad. First of all, he was the most challenging person in my life for a long time. And so I think he made me who I am in many ways. He is the person that I credit for my learning how to forgive. And that's such a gift to me to be able to forgive, and then to the world. I give him credit for what we're doing in the prison, and it's my most rewarding work by far. And I would say just the way he lived his life with so much simplicity is what I need in my life right now. I need more time in nature. I need less is more. I need to figure out how to do more art, creative expression things that I've never really done. So he's just inspiring me right now. I feel like he's kind of walking me through this. I'm really inspired by the way he lived his life, especially the last 20 years.
Especially want to tell you how much I relate to that as well. And it's so interesting because I would never have thought of our dad as being someone that I would consider inspirational. He's an artist, musician. We admired him for those things. But I thought of him as more childlike than me when I was a child. That's not very nice to say at all about your dad. But what I'm saying is I've looked up to him. I think that he is in our lives. And I have felt most recently in some of my challenges, I felt to like, how can I get in tune with like, I don't have any mediums or anything that where I can communicate with him, but what would he tell me if he were here today? I like to have those interested thoughts.
Yeah.
I most recently felt inspired to look up some of his letters that he wrote to me. And I pulled out I have a couple of binders full of the letters that he wrote while he was in prison. And just remembering his advice. One letter that I pulled out that was the answer to what I was looking for is that, and my question was, who can I turn to? What can I do? How can I find these answers? And I mean, I know God has always been the person that I turn to, but I wanted something physical. I wanted tangible. I wanted something that I could answer immediate. And that he wrote in this letter was, he said, everything you need is inside of you. That was my answer. Everything you need is inside of you.
Wow.
And you would think that at the time, I don't know that I would have thought that to be so inspired or inspirational, but I think he's there. He's using these tools now, like what he used when he was here. And I know he had some regrets about his life, but I also know that he is forgiven, and I know that he's making better of those experiences. Anyway.
Yeah. Awesome.
So fun. Anyway, well, thank you, Denise. I thought those were all my rapid fire questions. Is there anything else you wanted to say before we wrap up?
Yes. What is your definition of thriving?
Ooh, thriving regardless of circumstances. So thriving to me means that I am happy regardless of anything else that's going on. It is creating a life that you love. And there are areas of my life that I look at where I am thriving, and areas where I wish that I was doing more. And I believe it's just a matter of perspective. It's being okay with not being good enough in some areas, I think, is thriving. That was a gift of mine. I think I was born with that gift to be happy regardless of what's going on.
Yeah.
I think I'm grateful for that gift. But then I hit the roads in my life where things really are difficult. They really are hard. And I'm wise enough to know now that I can't just smile them away. So it is learning how to be sincerely, genuinely happy.
Yeah.
So I'm not answer your question.
Well, I can close with then the yoga word for that.
Yeah.
Tie it back into yoga. So in the 8 limbs of yoga, there's a teaching called Santosha. And Santosha is the practice of contentment.
Mm-hmm.
And at first sight, when you hear that or see that, a lot of people think that means settling. And, oh, I'm just content. Or it might even mean like, oh, I'm lazy, I'm content, so I'm not going to go get a job or do whatever. But in fact, when you dive deep into this concept, it's a choice to live in a state of contentment.
Okay.
And I even call that like inner joy, which is different than happiness, because happiness it's like, I'll be happy when, and happiness is also situational, right? Like, oh, it's a beautiful sunrise. Now I'm happy. Oh, it's raining. Now I'm not happy, right? So this Santosha is, I am content, first and foremost, by choice, always, eternally, the divine light, I'm content, and it's raining.
Yes.
I am content, and that's a sunrise, beautiful sunrise. I am content, and this is hard.
Yes.
I am content, and I'm angry. Like, we can be both. I am content while I'm in the middle of grieving a loss. I am content and I'm experiencing fear, right? But first and foremost, there's this center in me that is content. And when I live there, I'm thriving.
Oh, I love that.
It's not conditional. It's not based on anything external, where I live, how much I make, what I look like. I am content right here, right now, first and foremost. Nothing needs to change. I have no desire. There's nothing that I'm averse to, nothing to push away. I'm just content and fill in the blank. And that's what I think that's what yoga says about thriving.
And thriving because of your circumstances, right? This is not just regardless of them, but these circumstances are what is helping us to learn to thrive, like you're explaining.
Yeah, they prepare us to be where we are.
Thank you, Denise. I love that we've been able to have this much time together. It's like the kind of conversations we have when we have lunch and dinner together. We don't have a lot of those opportunities.
I know. And I hope we gave your listeners some nuggets to hold on to. Thanks for letting me share my life story. That's really a gift you're giving to people, to be able to share their story and to have an audience listen to it. That's very special. I'm proud of you for what you're creating here.
Thank you. I'm glad you said that, because that reminded me of something I wanted to say at the very close, and then we'll say goodbye. I have this image of, I'll just read it. It's good enough. It says, "You made it. You are standing on the edge of the stage, the edge of your life. Looking back on your life hours before passing through the other side. What are you thinking? How do you feel? What did you accomplish? Are you satisfied with how your life turned out? The great news is you are not standing at the edge of your life. You still have time to create the life you always wanted. You have time to learn from those difficult experiences that you thought were a waste. Those times when you felt more sorrow for yourself than understanding. You were inhibited from learning. And those times when you blamed someone else for the pain they caused you, you missed out on building strength and character. And that's the kind of my hope for that, the stuff that we're doing. And write your life story and embrace it and share it with us and help us to learn from your story as much as you learn. So
really beautiful. It's
I'm just
really
happy
beautiful.
that you're here.
thank
Yeah.
you. Have a beautiful day, Denise. I'm so glad
Okay.
I'm just
You
happy
too.
that
I love
you're
you.
here.
you. Bye.